Hello and welcome to Preemie Chats, a place for parents and healthcare professionals to gather, share stories, and learn from each other. My name is Jenna Morton. I'm one of three co-hosts who present this weekly series on behalf of the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation. I'm a career broadcast journalist and mom to three NICU grads, two of whom were preemie twins who were born at 32 weeks and are now 11 years old. I live and work in Mi'kma'ki, outside of Moncton, New Brunswick. Well, Preemie Chats is a creation of the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation, also known as CPBF. The foundation is a parent-led charity that helps families during and after their NICU time through education, support, and advocacy. You can see our website there on your screen, canadianpreemies.org. I hope you will take some time to visit that later today. You'll find all kinds of resources, including the recorded versions of all of our previous Preemie Chats, our podcast, lots and lots of printables and resources. But most importantly, it will help you become connected with a community of parents and professionals who are working together to help our children thrive. As I said, this is a parent-led association and very much a parent-led discussion. We would love to know where you're watching from today, where you're joining us, and what brings you to us, whether you're a parent or a family member, a caregiver, or you're a healthcare professional. We would love to hear from you in the comments. Let us know where you're watching from. And as we go through today's topic, please feel free to share your experiences and your questions for our guest in the comments as well. And I do think that everybody probably has something they could share about today's topic of sleep and why won't my baby sleep? It's a question I think every parent has probably asked at some point in their time. Everyone who's had a baby in their care has probably felt those worries of, are they sleeping too much? Are they sleeping not enough? How can I get them to sleep more? And honestly, there's not a lot of quick and easy answers, but there's a lot of experience we can share and a lot we can do to help you feel like you are not alone in this conversation. And to do that, I do have a guest joining me today. She is a NICU nurse and an author. Karen Lasby has spent decades helping families, preemie families especially, navigate that transition from the hospital to home. She has presented locally, nationally, and internationally on various topics. She's been co-investigator on many research papers. She's also a published author. She and her colleague Tammy Shiro published Preemie Care, a guide to navigate the first year with your premature baby a few years ago. And I'm thrilled that Karen is joining us today to talk about sleep. Welcome to Preemie Chats, Karen.
Hi, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much to the Canadian Premature Babies Foundation for asking me to talk on this very popular question. And I hope I'm going to be able to shed some light today. And if not, I'm hoping everyone will add their comments, their strategies that they've tried, and we'll hopefully have some time at the end to discuss them. So thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you so much, Karen. I know people are going to be tuning in with careful ears to get any tip that they might be able to about better sleep for their infants. So I'm going to ask you to start your presentation. I'm going to turn the stage over to you for a little bit.
Okay. All right. There, I think we're up and running. Okay, excellent. Why won't my preemie sleep at home? It has got to be one of the top three questions that I receive from families after they've taken their preemie home from the NICU. And they usually say that with a cup of caffeine in hand and bags under their eyes, and they're, in their PJs and looking disheveled because they're exhausted. So this is a really, really important question. I'm going to start off with a little short story, a true story about a premature baby girl who spent several weeks and months in the NICU, and she's been home for 3 days. So this is my first time meeting them. The parents are exhausted from lack of sleep. Now, this isn't their first time having a baby. They had a full-term baby 3 years ago. And they were prepared for frequent wakenings at night, and they'd be tired. They were prepared for that. And they remarked that their other baby slept 1 to 3 hours after coming home from the hospital right away. And then, a couple months later, the baby was sleeping 4 to 6 hours. So they were prepared for that kind of a pattern. But for this baby, it's a very different story. So and they found out that she won't sleep for more than 15 minutes in her bassinet. At the very best, she'll sleep an hour. And she's tossing and turning and making all these noises. So they resorted to holding her, and she slept very well. So what's happening is they're playing tag team. So one parent holds her for, as long as they can, and then it passes off to the next one so they can get things done or get some sleep. So they've been doing this for 3 days. So as you can imagine, and many of you can imagine truly, that this is what's that's leading to their exhaustion. They commented that they asked me what happens in the NICU at night, because they primarily been spending the day and evenings in the NICU. What happens at night? And I asked, why are you asking? They said, well, they must like turn all the lights on and play loud music or something, because I have a night owl. This little girl is a night owl, and she's awake and wanting to in a party mood all night long. But here she is at home, and that's what's happening. So what I observed when I walked in the house is I walked into their family room. I could see grandma over in the kitchen. She's got the mix master going. She's making something, making lots of noise. The television's on a cartoon. Her 3-year-old is playing toys, making lots of music. She's singing and playing on a little toy piano. And the baby is in a bassinet in the family room. The windows are open, and the baby's sleeping soundly. So does this sound familiar with what you experienced? I see this situation very frequently, and the parents, as you probably were or are desperate to get some sleep. There's no doubt adequate sleep is essential for everyone. For babies, it's necessary for optimal growth and development. There is growing evidence that sleep quality is critical for brain development and neurodevelopmental outcomes. But it is true that preterm babies have a higher rate of sleep difficulties than term-born infants. But there's not a lot of research to help us solve this mystery. What can we do to help them sleep longer? So what I'm going to talk about today is just give a little overview on premature babies and sleep patterns. And then we're going to talk about what is realistic for a sleeping goal, or what we can possibly achieve. And then we're going to spend the bulk of the time talking about strategies. And I'm going to start in the NICU, and that may surprise you. And then certainly some strategies for home. So first off, newborns have different sleep patterns. Any of you who've had a baby at home, they sleep very differently than we do, and they sleep less soundly. When adults sleep, we kind of have this sleep cycle between light sleep and deep sleep, and we cycle that about every 90 to 100 minutes. Full-term infants, their sleep cycle is around an hour, 50 to 90 minutes. For a premature baby, it's about 20 to 40 minutes. So they're going from light sleep to deep sleep in a mere 20 to 40 minutes. And in fact, premature babies under 32 weeks do not show regular sleep patterns, although it will develop with time. But as they come home, they don't show that regular sleep-wake patterns that term babies do at first. So just a quick review on what are the main sleep states. There's mainly two of them. There's that active sleep or light sleep. This is the sleep that is predominant in babies, preterm babies and term babies. You will notice your baby twitches and squirms, makes little facial expressions. They make little goat noises, little noises, and they flutter their eyes. You think, oh, is she waking up? No, she's gone back to sleep. And you might see her eyeballs rolling underneath their closed eyelids. Their breathing is irregular. They're breathing fast, and then they slow down, and they're easily woken up by any kind of noise or activity in the room. Many parents, for first-time parents, find this sleep state very disturbing because it wakes you up during the night. You think, I can't sleep because she's making all this noise and she's moving around her bassinet. And it's very easy to misinterpret those signs of active sleep or light sleep. It's easy to misinterpret those signs as hunger or discomfort. And so you go to attend to your baby, but in actual fact, that is their sleep state. During quiet sleep or deep sleep, this is when the baby is very peaceful. And this is kind of like, the perfect scenario. You see your baby all swaddled up in the bassinet and they're sleeping peacefully. That's every parent's dream. They make the minimal movement. They may make some sucking noises. Their breathing is a little slower, more regular, and they have a very hard time waking up. So if you think, oh, I got to go off to an appointment, and you're trying to get your baby out of deep sleep, you'll find they're very groggy, very drowsy, just as you and I would be if someone woke us up from deep sleep. So as I said, premature babies spend most of their time in active sleep. So only about 20% of their time is in quiet sleep. And over like almost 50% is in this active light sleep. So as they get closer to term, so if you had a preterm baby, as they get closer to term, that the quiet sleep or deep sleep will increase. And usually by about the time they're 7 years old, that's when deep sleep starts to predominate. And that's why we have to have cribs with rails, bassinets with walls. And when you do get them into a big bed, big boy, big girl bed, a toddler bed, that's why you're either putting the mattress on the floor because they're busy, they're rolling around, or you're having to put up some temporary railings because they will fall out of bed because they are very active. I recall having my child, it was a thunderstorm and they got afraid. So they crawled in bed with us. And, 1 minute, their head's on my pillow, and the next minute their feet are there. And then the next minute they're laying over it, cross my legs. Active sleep, very disturbing for those of us adults who like deep sleep. So we all know the typical factors that impact a baby's sleep. You're hungry. They are hungry. They'll wake up. They're uncomfortable, wet diaper, dirty diaper. Maybe their position is kind of off, and so that'll wake them up. Could be overheating. Could be the environment. Could be the amount of light or lack of it, the amount of noise or lack of it. So something's off on their environment, and so it wakes them up from sleep. Those are pretty typical. But what's going to be special for premature babies is, let's start off with, the more premature your baby is, the shorter their sleep cycle and the less organized their sleep cycle. So I mentioned, you saw that little graphic, or going light sleep, deep sleep, light sleep. That's a pretty nice pattern that we adults will go through. But for the premature baby, it's all over the place. And maybe they might even skip a deep sleep. They just stay in light sleep and then they wake up. And so it's less organized, and it will take some months and perhaps years before their sleep cycle is really organized. The length of time in the NICU, as you know, that environment of the NICU it's shocking. There's a lot of noise, not only that background noise, but also the sudden noises, an alarm, or somebody talking or laughing, or something happening, a big activity, a baby's coming into the unit from being born, and there's lots going on. So that environment is very disruptive. And then the light, I know they do cycle light in most NICUs, so that there is a quiet time where we speak in whispered voices and we turn the lights down. But in actual fact, it's not anything like our day-night cycles of that we're experiencing. And they are overstimulated in the NICU. They have to undergo some uncomfortable or painful procedures. They're exposed to any kind of overstimulation that might wake them up from sleep. In fact, one study showed that a newborn's sleep in the NICU is interrupted 234 times in 24 hours. Their sleep is interrupted. So that is shocking, that sleep is not being protected. Premature babies may experience more discomfort than a term baby. They may have more stomach discomfort, maybe an intolerance, or maybe they have to have more fortification, or maybe their tummy waves are not moving as nicely as a term baby's yet. So they're getting some cramping. Maybe they're gassy. Maybe they've got some medical issues, or they've got equipment on them. They've got oxygen on their face and the tape is bugging them, or they've got needles in place, or they're having reflux. And so they got that acid reflux burn. That's disrupting. And finally, the time sleeping on their back. So for you, those of you who've had a baby in an NICU or now home with your baby, think about how often you saw your baby sleeping on their back on a flat surface in the NICU. I tell you, it's from my experience, it's not very long. And it can be maybe a day or two, and then they're home. So we're going to get back to that in a second. So, of course, our overall goal is sleep. We want to overcome this exhaustion that you are experiencing when you take your baby home. So what is realistic for us to hope for or to aim for? Well, that is dependent on your baby's corrected or their adjusted age. So if your baby is preterm, we know that those sleep cycles are really disorganized. So we're not expecting a lot of regular sleep patterns or long sleep cycles. And as your baby gets closer to term age, so let's say you took your baby home at 37 weeks or 42 weeks, those babies are getting close to that term age or your due date, that we can start looking at the term sleep guidelines or normals as a guide as to what to expect. And so if we're saying that a term baby will sleep, 1 to 4 hours, then when your baby is post-term now, we can hope for that or at least help to facilitate that. So as an example, let's look at this typical sleep duration. So I corrected this table so that on the left-hand column, it says corrected age. And so that is 0 to 2 months. So that is from your due date or day 0. Your premature baby has now hit your due date, hit that term age. For the next 2 months, we can anticipate that your baby's going to sleep 2 to 4 hours. In my experience, it's more like 1 to 3 hours, let's be realistic. They're awake for an hour or two, and their total sleep per day is quite long, 16 to 18 hours per day. As your baby gets older, you'll notice the sleep duration and the awake duration increase, and their total sleep per day decreases. So by the time your baby is 6 months corrected age, they're sleeping longer at night. They're taking short little naps. A lot of parents call them little cat naps, 20-minute naps during the day. They're awake longer periods, and their total sleep has decreased. So how can parents improve their premature baby sleep? And their parents are begging, please, please, please come up with some ideas. So if you've got any strategies that you tried that worked or didn't work, you just join the chat there. First off, let's talk about what you see in the NICU. You see a raised head of bed. Your baby's head is up, bum is down on a raised mattress. You may see some positioning devices around, gel mattresses. You may see some rolls around your baby. Your baby may be lying on their sides or lying on their stomach, like this baby in the photo. You may see objects or toys in their sleeping area or lots of medical equipment. You may see a hat on your baby's head, or you may see a CPAP hat, like this baby in the picture. Or you may see your baby not even in that environment, but actually sleeping in a swing. Also keep in mind that your baby, while in the NICU, is on a heart monitor or a heart cardiorespiratory monitor that registers your baby's heart rate and respiratory rate. So these positions, although not recommended when you take your baby home, these positions do have the added security of your baby being on a monitor. So keep that in mind. So you take your baby home. They've been in a raised head of bed. They've had all these things around them. And your baby doesn't sleep well at home. So what happens is parents resort to what they saw work in the NICU. And so they will put their baby on their tummy. They will position their baby on their own chest and try to and sleep and try to hold on to the baby without the baby falling over. They may end up taking their baby into their bed because they're just desperate for some sleep. They may start raising the head of their mattress or their crib in a very unsafe way. Cribs are not meant to be raised. So unfortunately, I see this way too often, and I totally get it. You are desperate to get your baby to sleep. So that is understandable that you're thinking, well, it worked in the NICU. Well, let's see if it can work at home. All right, so let's get into some strategies. Before your baby goes home, I want you to have 2 conversations with your NICU team. One is about safe sleep, and I'll define that in another slide. In the study in 2020, in a large American NICU, only 13% of babies qualified as being in a safe sleep position. 49% had the head of the bed elevated without a doctor's order. 42% were not sleeping on their backs, and 56% had positioning devices around them. So at the time of discharge, these parents are taught safe sleep practices. Take your baby home now. And is it any wonder that those babies didn't sleep well at home? Because they're going through a sudden transition on their sleep habits. So before your baby goes home, parents can advocate for safe sleep practices. Get your baby on their back to sleep. Stop raising the head of the bed. Now, there may be medical reasons why your baby needs to sleep in a different fashion, and that's of course, that's important. But if your baby is well, and there are no medical reasons to counter this going to a safe sleep practice, then start it in the NICU. And the second thing parents can do prior to the NICU discharge is to start advocating for protecting your baby's sleep. Multiple studies have been done in the last 10 years looking at the need for enhancing sleep in the NICU. Sleep protection is one of the core measures identified in the neonatal developmental care. So, the skin to skin and not overstressing the baby. Protecting sleep is one of those core measures. So ask your NICU team how they are going to protect your baby's sleep. Do they control light and noise and stimulation during sleep periods? Can they delay elective tasks or procedures if your baby is sleeping? So if your baby is sleeping, your baby's going to go home in a couple days and your baby is sleeping. Are they waking up your baby to do vital signs and to feed your baby? Or are they waiting for your baby to wake up? So these are important questions that you can start getting the ball rolling in terms of getting your baby in the best state possible to have better sleep at home. Once you take your baby home, there are 5 core strategies that I want to share. The first one, of course, first things first, is safe sleep practices. So that means a flat mattress, so not raised, unless the doctor ordered otherwise. And if your doctor does order you to raise the head of the bed, ask your doctor how to do that safely. Putting cribs up on blocks, that is not safe. The manufacturer never designed for that crib to be elevated. So ask your doctor for strategies. A firm mattress. So no rolls around the baby, no positioning devices, pillows, rolls, wedges. If your baby does need special positioning, again, ask your doctor for what they recommend. No objects, toys, bumper pads, heavy quilts, comforters, all of that. Nope, none of that inside your baby's crib or bassinet. No sleeping in a car seat or a swing. They just are too squished and they can't get normal respirations. We should limit the amount of time that our babies are positioned in car seats. And for safe sleep, they should be on their back and not in a swing. Room sharing, sleep sack or swaddling, absolutely. Those are both recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and Canadian Pediatric Society. Just watch that they don't get overheated. I'll talk a little bit about that swaddling. Babies, room sharing is recommended until the babies are 6 months corrected age. So that means bringing a bassinet into your room. So sharing a room with you, but not sharing the bed. An adult mattress is not safe for a baby sleeping, and co-sleeping with your baby raises the risk of overlaying and smothering the baby and getting overhot. So safe sleep practices, that's first and foremost. Second thing, we need to rule out any physical issues. Could your baby be hungry? Have they had too much to drink and then now they're uncomfortable? Do they have a sore tummy? Are they gassy? Are they refluxy? You can't lay them down yet because you need to hold them upright. Are they in pain? Do they have a dirty diaper? Are they too warm or too cold? Are they overstimulated? We want to decrease that stimulation prior to sleep times. Or are they unwell? So let's rule out some physical issues. And I know when your baby is not sleeping, those things are all running through your head. Could it be this? Could it be this? How about this? How about this? So I know you're already thinking of all those strategies. The third strategy is to modify the environment. So this is going to be a little bit of a head, might be kind of odd for you to hear this. So most of the time, babies leave the NICU and they're little night owls. They're awake all night. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to help them sleep better at night. But at the same time, we're going to counter that with don't sleep so well during the day. If you're going to sleep well at night when mommy, daddy, or parents want to sleep. And during the day, short naps are okay. So we're going to modify the environment. In the opening story, when I met this family, this baby girl who was home for 3 days, and she's sleeping in her literally her NICU environment in their family room with all the noise and light going on. And she's sleeping so soundly there. So what I suggested that they do is at nighttime, I wanted them to add a light into their bedroom because she was sleeping in a bassinet in the bedroom. Not a ceiling light, because that will interfere with your own sleep and your melatonin secretion. So not a ceiling light, but like a little gooseneck lamp or a little lamp close by. So when when the baby is in light sleep and kind of fluttering her eyelids open and blinking around, I want her to be able to see shadows or some light. I don't want it to be pitch black. So we're going to add some light, and hopefully that in a way that it won't disturb you. We're also going to add some white noise. It could be a bathroom fan. It could be a white noise machine that plays ocean waves or a heartbeat or anything you find relaxing. It could be just some music that is comforting, quieting to your baby. And those two things are going to help your baby sleep better at night, so that when they get into these light sleep states, I want them to feel lulled. I want them to feel comforted, that they can open their eyes, they can see something, but then they can go back to sleep because they're hearing that white noise kind of help them lull them back to sleep. And on the opposite side, during the daytime, I want them to sleep in the darkest place, in the quietest place in your house. So I don't want them to sleep as well during the day. So if they're going to be in your bedroom, you can put the bassinet back in the bedroom for sleep time, darken that room. And if you're blackout blinds, or put a towel up over your window, I want it really dark. And I know many of these new apartments are really challenging to get dark. So either get some darkening shades or do something to really make it nice and dark. And really quiet. I don't want any white noise. I don't want any light on. And so we're going to do this for a temporary point of time. So as your baby starts to sleep better at nighttime, then you're going to start removing the white noise. Or let's just play it for 20 minutes while she falls asleep, and then we're going to just let it stop. or we're going to not use the light anymore. So as they're sleeping better at nighttime, you can remove those modifications. And during the daytime, I would keep them in that dark and quiet environment for quite some time, until you're really confident that they're not going to develop really long sleep patterns during the day. And the bedtime routines. There's a list of things that we can be doing for bedtime routines. It's never too early to start a bedtime routine. I advise families to have that discussion. How do we want bedtime to evolve here? Do we want to do a routine every night? Do we want to do something different? Do we want to read every night to them? Do we want to sing? What are we going to do? So that consistency is really important. Newborn babies are all about trust versus mistrust. And so they're all about, oh, I recognize this pattern. I'm feeling safe. I can let myself go to sleep. And on the other hand, if you're doing something different, maybe one parent, plays with them and gets them all tired out, woohoo, and then they're going to bed super stimulated, and the other one is more mellow. That's a really different experience. And so the baby's not learning, oh, when I'm going through these three things, it's bedtime after that. So you want to start that routine. Very comforting and consistent from one person to another. I recommend the same place until you're happy with your baby's sleep patterns. I recommend the same place for all sleep, day and night. At bassinet in your room. So use a baby monitor so that you can feel confident that your baby is okay. You can hear them from wherever you are. But I want them to feel that consistent routine of this is where I am. And so that requires some conversation with your family members about getting them to do that consistency. Tub bathing before sleep can be, research has shown it can promote sleep. However, I do note that many families say that bathing is very stressful for their premature baby, especially at the beginning. So bath time before bedtime may not be the best thing. Or you may need to really do that bath time quite a while before bedtime to help them calm down. Studies have shown that 5 or 10 minutes of gentle massage, basically stroking, can promote sleep quality, or a little bit of skin to skin and some stroking of their head. What we're trying to do is get them into that nice, relaxed state so that they can just let sleep come to them. So your routine should occur in a quiet area. So maybe it's, maybe you do that maybe you've got a baby's room, or you have a chair in your room. It's some quiet time, some cuddling time, some soft voices, singing, reading to your baby, low stimulation. And by the way, when you're reading to your baby, you don't need to read baby books. They just they've been hearing your voice all along. You could be reading the newspaper. Who reads newspaper these days? But reading the news or reading a magazine out loud. But is just they just want to hear your voice and that reassurance. So speak quietly and avoid stimulating play or lots of noise just before bedtime. Isn't it the same for us? Don't they say, screen time and television just before you go to bed really interferes with your sleep quality? Most of the time, especially in the early, a feed is required just before that hopefully that longer sleep. So again, talk quietly, caress their head while they're finishing that feed so that they just get into that nice relaxed state. That feed should occur in a quiet area. So no, that mom should not take that baby girl out into the family room where everybody else is there and having the baby feed there. The feed should be in that quiet, darkened room. Research has shown that a soother or pacifier can help protect against sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS, even if the pacifier falls out while the baby is sleeping, so you don't have to worry about stuffing that back in. But it does have some protection. A lot of NICU babies are very used to having a soother, so that is often just part of your world for a little while, that they're using a soother. Eventually, they'll give it up. There's a point in time where they all kind of decide that's not for me anymore. So a soother or pacifier does help take the baby into a nice quiet state. For an example, if a baby is really hyped up before a feed, even just a couple minutes sucking on a soother will help them calm down. So similarly, before bedtime, do they want to just have that sucking to calm them? Swaddling or bundling your baby, however you want to describe it. Most babies sleep better when they're swaddled. Think of it, in the NICU, they often put boundaries around your baby to help contain them. Swaddling is kind of the same thing. They're that active light sleep, the legs are moving and the arms are moving, and, just having that little hug, bed hug from a swaddle helps. So, just keep that in mind, that some babies like to have their arms tucked inside when they're swaddled, and some don't like to have that. In fact, I find it's probably 50-50. You swaddle up their arms and you're like, I need to get out of this, a little Houdini, and they usually can get out of the swaddle really easily. So I suggest you swaddle from the armpits down. So let their hands, they seem to want to sleep with their hands up like this. And swaddle them from the chest down, in your light swaddle material. So you want to avoid overheating when you're swaddling. So if they're wearing a onesie and a sleeper and then you start layering on, they're going to get quite warm. So just watch the type of material that you're using for that swaddle. A sleep sack is really easy to use. Again, there's some babies who are little Houdinis, and they get out of that swaddle immediately after you swaddle them up. So a sleep sack is certainly has been approved by all of our American and Canadian pediatric societies. Make sure it's correctly sized, and that's kind of tricky when you've got taking a little preemie home. You don't want it so big that they actually fall down inside of it. So just make sure that the baby's face is clear. There are some sleep sacks that strap in the arms, and some that are just kind of like a jumper. The arms are out. So see which one your baby likes. But there should be, it should be a little bit containing, a little bit kind of like it's almost like a lightweight, so kind of similar to a swaddle. I often find parents, because the swaddles are it's just that motion, and it's not relaxing at all. And some babies find it very relaxing, kind of like a swing. But maybe it's how they're being rocked. Maybe if they're up and down, as in skin to skin, maybe that kind of rock is nice. But if you've got them sideways and you're rocking, maybe this is kind of not the kind of rocking that they want. So maybe watch, maybe upright on your chest and try a gentle rock versus sideways in your arms, kind of like this dad. If he was rocking in that chair, would that just be really making that baby dizzy? So watch the rocking and whether just sitting still, and then do share that with other people who may be settling your baby to sleep. And the last and final strategy is time. It will take time. And I promise you, your baby will learn to sleep longer at night than during the day. But it does take a minimum of 2 weeks, probably closer to a month, after leaving the NICU before your baby will begin to sleep better at night. So be prepared for that. So be patient. This is a period of adjustment for your baby as they acclimatize to being at home. It's dark and it's quiet at home. Hopefully you'll do some environment modifications to help your baby adjust to that kind of really different environment, very different from the NICU. So in the meantime, I recommend that you take naps during the day. Even a 20-minute nap will be helpful to you. We know that interrupted and short sleep exhaustion is very difficult for new families, and it can lead to mental health concerns such as depression, postpartum depression. It can aggravate existing anxieties and mental health concerns. So sleep is really important. So you may even do a tag team with other family members and saying, okay, I'll do tonight, you do tomorrow, you do the weekend, I'll do the weekdays, like something so that you can look forward to, at least, 4 to 6 hours uninterrupted sleep for each adult periodically. Do know that as your baby changes, as they mature, their sleep patterns will change so that their active sleep will become less and less. Their deep sleep will increase. And so that will really help, especially if you've been modifying their environment and you're helping them have that longer deep sleep during the night. As your baby gets older, you're going to start putting your baby down to sleep before they are fully asleep. Initially, you'll wait till they're nice and relaxed and sleep, and then you'll put them down. But as they get older, it's time to start challenging your baby a little bit and say, we've gone through the routine. You know the drill here. We've read, we've sang, we've cuddled. You've got a dry diaper. You've been fed. And I'm putting you down in a drowsy but slightly awake state. And they will learn to just relax. They trust that this is the routine, and they will learn to settle in. And as they get older and older and older, the goal is to actually do less of that routine, and put them down to sleep so that they can fall asleep by themselves. That is a big challenge. I know I've got grandkids, and that is definitely a challenge as the baby gets older. But they do learn self-soothing behaviors. They learn to kind of, maybe it's a soother, or maybe they rock a little bit, or hum to themselves. So they do develop their own little strategies. So takeaways from this presentation, I did talk about premature babies and how their sleep is different and how prematurity can impact not only the sleep cycles, but the duration of sleep. I'm suggesting that parents start advocating in the NICU to protect your baby's sleep and to get into a safe sleep position well before your baby goes home, so that they get used to that. I'd like the first thing that you do when you do take your baby home is follow all the safe sleep practices so that your baby is protected. I'd like you to rule out physical issues. If your baby is not sleeping, could they possibly be hungry, going through a growth spurt, needing to feed every hour? Could they be uncomfortable? They had a vaccine this morning. Could they be sick? I'm suggesting you modify their environment on a temporary basis so that day and night is basically mixed up, so that they can sleep better, learn to sleep better when it's quite fairly dark out and quiet. Gave you lots of bedtime strategies to try, but consistency is one of the important things. And then time. In time, your baby will learn to sleep better. But in the meantime, take care of yourself, because it's really important for you to not become ill, and to make sure that you can take care of your baby. So thank you very much for listening. And that's the end of my presentation. And if anyone has any strategies they want to discuss, I'm all open to hear what you might suggest.
Thank you so much for that, Karen. There's so many thoughts going through my head, trying to remember what those early days were like and what did I know and think I knew. And I think the big takeaway for me right now has just been how much more education we all need to provide new parents when it comes to the topic of sleep and that idea of what are realistic expectations.
Yeah.
And I think your slide that you had there where you talked about what you could expect as the duration of their time awake, that for me was I don't remember ever really talking about how long can I expect this baby to stay awake for?
Mm-hmm.
Because that information to me seems so much more helpful and useful as a parent to figure out how to manage my day and that whole sleep when baby sleeps. Well, if baby's only going to be awake for an hour at a time, I'm not going to get a whole lot of sleep if that's how I'm doing it. So then you go
Absolutely.
into those other strategies of, okay, is it these are my 2 days where I'm going to stay up and my partner's going to stay up for the next 2 days, so that each of us does kind of balance our
Yeah.
time. And so, yeah, there was so much great information in there that I hope people really kind of take away. And even if you're out of that zone of dealing with newborns and sleep,
Yeah.
passing this kind of information on to people who do have a new baby in their life.
We spend a lot of time talking about how best to help your baby feed, or to deal with their medical issues, or and often we don't talk a lot about sleep when before you take your baby home, and it's a big shock for families. They're going, my baby doesn't sleep, and especially if you're spending let's say 2 hour blocks in the NICU. You're not seeing that pattern, like what happens between feeds, and you realize how busy your babies really are. So you're right. We don't often talk about sleep, and it's sort of a trial by fire. You get home and you think now you're really exhausted, and no wonder this baby doesn't sleep. So,
Mhm.
and I'm really hoping parents will take the message that when your baby's in the NICU, that's the time to start talking about sleep and promoting it before your baby goes home. So kind of like getting some habits started early, so that make it a little easier for parents when they're taking their baby home.
Well, yeah, and even just to think through those questions of asking, the staff in the NICU of, yeah, how long does my baby usually stay awake versus how long they sleep for? Having
Yeah,
that kind of information, I think, it seems so simple now that we talk about it, but it's not.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, whether you're taking a full-term baby home or a preterm baby home, it's a little more complicated for taking a premature baby home, but nevertheless, sleep is a it's a desperate topic for most families. So,
It is,
uh,
and we've had a few people commenting as you were giving your presentation, and so I've
yeah,
got two comments here that I want to highlight. And one first was from Ashley, who was talking about both she and her sister were preemies and how different their sleep patterns are even now. And I find that really fascinating because I have twin boys and their sister. They were all born within 2 years of each other, and they have very different sleep habits from the time they came home to still to now, very different. And so, Ashley's saying she wonders whether it's just a personality thing or it was their different NICU journeys. And how do we think that all of these experiences really kind of factor into our sleep as we age?
yeah, yeah, and you wonder, is it the background of having been premature, or is it that they just are their their bodies are just more sensitive. So Ashley, you can start developing your own sleep routines, getting off of those devices before you go, like, so that it's really common sense to ways to get yourself more relaxed to be able to sleep. And Yeah, anyone who has sleep, and we all suffer from insomnia. You wake up at 2 in the morning and then you're just wide awake and you can't get back to sleep. And so a lot of these strategies are true for adults, whether they are for as they are for babies. So um, are we hungry? Are we uncomfortable? Are we are we mentally or physically stressed and unwell? So there's a lot of checklists to have to go through for our own
Mm.
sleep too.
Yeah, and on that point of sleep and are we still hungry? We have a question here about that whole debate over whether you when you wake your baby up, if they're scheduled for a feed and they've just fallen asleep, and how as a parent, what kind of advice and help can you give parents who are struggling, like Sarah is, with trying to make those determinations of when to interrupt?
Gosh, that's a really good question, and it's one I really enjoy talking about when I'm talking about feeding. I am a believer in cue-based feeding or infant-led feeding. I am not. I do not support scheduled feedings, like feeding every 3 hours, as they often are in the NICU. When you first take your baby home, really watch for those hunger cues when your baby is hungry, and should you wake up your baby when they're in a deep sleep to feed? if they're in a deep sleep, no, I don't think so, because that sleep is always short lived, and it's very important for the body. So I would be more looking at a 24-hour intake for the baby and saying, okay, in 24 hours, a baby should feed 8 times a day. Your baby might do all of their feeding kind of like cluster feeding and then spread them out and have that longer sleep. um, I mean, there are maybe contraindications to doing letting your baby sleep longer, and maybe your baby is not gaining weight well. There may be health reasons why, sugar balance, that you must feed your baby on a certain schedule. Those are different and they're not that common. But for the most part, when your baby is in a deep sleep, I would say no, I would not wake them. But I would really watch their early cues for when they're waking up and be ready to feed them. I think you'll find that babies will feed much better when they wake up on their own. Um, and I would suggest that if the baby is sleeping really long, it's now, 4 or 5 hours, you're thinking, gosh, this is really a long time, then maybe you could just kind of unswaddle, or just let your baby wake up on their own. But maybe you modify the environment a little bit, saying, okay, I'm just going to turn on a light here, or I'm going to stop that white noise, or turn it on, or I'm going to do something different. And your baby, when they get into that light sleep state, will wake up on their own and they'll feed better, rather than going, wake up, change your diaper, eat. It's like, I can't, they're exhausted. So they just want to go back to sleep. So I would move more to an infant led, but just keep that eye on your 24-hour intakes. Are they breastfeeding or bottle feeding as frequently in 24 hours as they should when you let them sleep longer? So it's a bit of trial and error.
I think that's so interesting to think about it in terms of the 24-hour window. I remember I bring this up often because one of the, those pieces of advice we got in the NICU had to do with, don't compare right now to what happened 5 minutes ago or what happened at the last feeding or the last diaper change. Look back to see where you've come over time. And I think it's that same kind of thing you're saying now with sleep and with feeding. Like, if within a window of time you've done all the things you think you should,
yeah,
having something a little different is not necessarily worrisome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We have and Sarah said that was very helpful. We've got another question here, talking about, adjusting, going from those, those kind of windows that you've set up of awake and nap. And when you're looking to shift, are we doing this more by chronological age, by adjusted age, or is it just the magic of parenthood?
Yeah.
Guessing when.
Fingers crossed. I would always start from their corrected or their adjusted age as a guide. And so if you look at what you'll find any resource about term baby sleep or sleep patterns for 3-month-old babies, again, always, if you're a parent of a premature baby, always think corrected age for your baby. And even if they're 9 months old, be sure you're correcting for that, month or 2 or 3 that they came early. So until they're much older, I would always go by term guidelines for sleep. But every baby is different, and just like this mom who is a twin, their sleep patterns might be very different, so you do need to modify. So you know what, your something in between comment in that question is probably right on. So use the term guidelines, but then your baby best. You are the expert in your baby, and for you to say, you know what, it's 10 o'clock in the morning or night, and that's typically the time that this happens. You'll start seeing those rhythms that start occurring in your day, and they'll start showing up about 6 weeks corrected age, like say essentially 2 months. You'll start saying, oh, you know what, those morning naps are quite long, or they're quite short, and or 2 naps in the afternoon, or maybe there's only 1 and it's longer. Like, you're just going to see some patterns evolve for your baby. So it's really important. You just kind of keep an eye. Some parents actually like doing a little sleep chart, just to kind of give them that perspective and saying, what is this pattern here? And just write it down for a week and then take a look at it and see. Sometimes you have to, they go to sleep at 7 p.m. and then they sleep really well, but that's not really our sleep time. So some parents will say, well, I'm going to help them stay up until 8 this week and see if I can shift that longer sleep. I think every parent has tried to do that and successfully and unsuccessfully, but I think it's worth the effort to give things a try for a week or two and see if that helps. But yes, you can, something in between is probably about right.
I think that's such a good thing for people to hear again and again, though, that it there's not an exact answer. There's not, sure, there's all kinds of literature that will say at 7 weeks do this and 5 months do this, and really it does have give and take around those numbers for all of us, and everyone's, even if it seems like everyone in your social circle had a child that slept for the same number of hours at the same time, it probably really wasn't all the same.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's really great. I don't see any other questions or comments right now, but one last thought that I was hoping you could leave us with, Karen, for people who are in search of more answers, more resources, that sense of, where should they go looking for information? Are there some quick resources that you'd like to share for people? Because I know that can be really overwhelming, especially when you're a preemie parent who's looking for good, solid information and getting kind of that wash of everything that's available out there.
They're playing Dr. Google is every parent's, it seems to be every parent explores, sleep in premature babies, and you Google that. I would say focus on websites or resources that are from healthcare institutions. Canadian Premature Babies Foundation, Canadian Premature Pediatric Society. You may have a provincial health, Alberta Health has online resources, and you can look at the term guidelines absolutely for some resources, so that should be of help. And I would, kind of, it seems to be, I would stay with resources that have been researched. I know that when provinces and health institutions and Kids Health out of Toronto, when they put together that information, it is evidence-based. And that's really important. So, if you go onto a blog and it says, well, put your baby on their tummy, that advice is not, that if a parent shares that or that advice comes out on a blog, it can be unsafe. So I always recommend that you go to resources that are evidence-based. Of course, my book, Preemie Care, is always an option for people. And that's based on the literature as well as tons of decades of my own working with parents like you and their premature babies and learning from them as well. So we're happy to share that information.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation today and your time that you've spent with us.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you who've been watching along and following and asking questions and sharing comments today. I very much appreciate you taking the time to join myself and Karen Lasby, who is a NICU nurse, an author, an educator. And a reminder that you can watch this presentation again. This is live right now, but we're about to wrap things up, and you will be able to find this video on our YouTube, on our Facebook, on our website. And again, that website is canadianpreemies.org. I do hope that you will visit it. And I wanted to take a moment to thank our sponsor, AstraZeneca, for helping put together Preemie Chats and put it on the air for you. And a reminder that Preemie Chats is here every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I hope that you can tune in next week. It's another great topic talking about nutrition and eating and growing. So I hope you can tune in. And until then, take care.